Have you ever wondered what it would be like to stumble upon a moment that changes everything? The morning air in the eucalyptus forest was crisp, carrying the sharp temps of resin and the quiet hum of insects waking to the light. Nathan Ellis adjusted the strap of his backpack and moved carefully along the narrow trail. For years he had walked these woods with his camera, photographing birds, kangaroos, and the sleepy faces of koalas clinging high above in the treetops. But this morning, he would stumble upon something that would change his life forever. From a distance, he heard a sound that didn't belong to the tranquil rhythm of the forest. A low, pitiful cry. Not the soft chatter of kookaburras or the shrill call of a cockatoo, but a desperate broken whimper. Nathan slowed, his instincts as both photographer and lifelong animal lover sharpening. He followed the sound until he spotted movement near a fallen eucalyptus log. There, on the leaf-strewn ground, huddled a small family of koalas. The sight stopped him cold. A mother lay slumped against the log, her fur patchy and singed, her body trembling with exhaustion. On her back clung a tiny joey, no more than 8 months old, its wide eyes filled with confusion. Another young koala, slightly older, pressed against her side, crying softly. The mother's back bore a terrible wound and angry red burn, likely from a recent wildfire that had swept through parts of the forest. Nathan dropped to his knees. Had seen suffering in the wild before, but never like this. "No, no," he whispered, his voice breaking the silence. The mother lifted her head weakly, meeting his eyes. There was no fear, only a raw plea. For a moment, Nathan froze. He wasn't a veterinarian. He wasn't part of any rescue group. Just a man with a backpack and a camera. But as he looked at the struggling mother, he knew he couldn't walk away. He set his camera aside and slowly reached out. The older joey flinched but didn't run, too exhausted to resist. The baby clung tighter to its mother, whimpering. Nathan's heart twisted. He spoke softly. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The forest around them seemed to still, as though holding its breath. Carefully, Nathan slid his hand under the mother koala's good side. She groaned in pain but didn't fight. She seemed to understand. With gentle persistence, he lifted her enough to see the wound more clearly. It was bad, her skin raw and blistered, her fur matted. Without help, she wouldn't survive. And if she didn't survive, neither would her joeys. Nathan had a choice. He could leave them, hoping nature would take its course. Or he could intervene, risking bites, scratches, and the uncertainty of whether he could even save them. He tightened his jaw. There was no choice. He shrugged off his backpack and pulled out a water bottle and a spare shirt. Tearing the fabric into strips, he poured water over them, then pressed the cool cloth gently against the mother's burns. She shuddered, but stayed still. The joeys whimpered, pressing against her. "Brave girl," Nathan murmured. "Just hang on." He worked slowly, speaking softly the entire time, his voice a steady anchor. He dabbed at her wounds, wrapped the damp cloth carefully around her torso, and gave her sips of water from the cap of his bottle. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. Nathan knew he couldn't keep them here. They needed real care. But the nearest wildlife clinic was nearly an hour away by car, and he was deep in the bush. Carefully, he gathered the family. The mother was heavier than he expected, her limp body awkward to carry. He slid her gently into his backpack, leaving the zipper partly open so she could breathe. The older joey clung to his arm while the baby stayed pressed against its mother. It was an awkward, fragile arrangement, but it was the only way. The trek back was grueling. Sweat poured down Nathan's back as he navigated the uneven trail, every step cautious. The mother whimpered softly now and then, but the sound grew weaker with each passing minute. "Stay with me," Nathan urged. "We're almost there." At last, he reached his car. He laid them carefully on the back seat, adjusting the makeshift bandage, and drove as fast as the rough dirt road allowed. His heart pounded louder than the engine. When he arrived at the wildlife hospital, volunteers rushed out. Their eyes widened as they saw him carrying the burned mother with 2 joeys still clinging to her. "She's badly injured," Nathan said quickly. "Found them near the creek. She needs help now." The staff took the family inside, working swiftly. Nathan followed, his chest tight. He wasn't sure if he'd see them again. Hours later, a veterinarian emerged. Her face was tired, but she managed to smile. "You got them here just in time?" The mother's burns are serious, but with treatment, she'll recover. The Joeys are dehydrated, but otherwise healthy. You saved their lives. Relief washed over Nathan like a wave. He let out a shaky laugh, tears blurring his eyes. Thank God. In the weeks that followed, Nathan visited often. The mother, whom the staff named Hope, slowly regained her strength. Her burns healed under careful care, and her Joeys nicknamed Ash and Ember grew stronger every day. They would often climb into Nathan's lap during visits, their small claws clinging gently to his shirt as they dozed. Hope never forgot him. Though most koalas remained wary of humans, she allowed Nathan to sit close, even to stroke her fur. Her amber eyes carried the same quiet trust he had seen in the forest that first day. Months passed. When the day came for Hope and her Joeys to be released back into the wild, Nathan was there. The staff opened the transport crate, and the little family clambered out onto the base of a tall eucalyptus tree. Nathan held his breath as Hope looked back one last time. Their eyes met. In that brief moment, Nathan felt it again, that wordless plea now transformed into something else. Gratitude. She climbed, her Joeys following, until they disappeared into the canopy. The forest closed around them, their cries fading into the rustling leaves. Nathan stood there for a long time, his chest full, his eyes wet. He knew he might never see them again, but that was okay. They belonged here, in the wild, safe and free. And he would carry their story with him, a reminder that sometimes the smallest act of courage, a torn shirt, a long walk, a refusal to look awake, could change the course of lives forever. Years later, Nathan often returned to that same eucalyptus grove, never knew if Hope and her Joeys were still out there. But every time he heard the soft grunt of a koala high in the branches, his heart swelled. Because somewhere in this vast, fragile world, a family lived because he chose to act. And that, he knew, was the greatest photograph he never took.